What's going on, party people? It is your boy Coop, and today we are taking a look at the September Comet expansion that is coming for D2. And it's called the Comet because basically that's what Bungie has always called it. I guess you could call it the Taken Queen, the Taken King Part 2, whatever you feel like saying, guys. I really don't care. So there's a few reasons we know that this expansion will be happening on the Reef. So first of all, Luke Smith said, after everyone started beating the campaign of D2, there was this little sneaky cutscene at the end, which shows the light traveling over the solar system. It goes over Mercury, Mars, the Reef, the Dreadnought, and a few other locations. Luke Smith lets us know that the order that the light touches these locations is the order in which we will be playing these locations. So basically what this means is he was 100% right thus far. So Curse of Osiris took place on Mercury. That is the first place we see the light touch at the end of that cutscene. Then the light goes to Mars, which we had, of course, the Warmind expansion on Mars. Now, lastly, we see it touch the Reef and the Dreadnought. Now, whether or not the Dreadnought will be part of this expansion is still, a little bit debatable, but we did see some foreshadowing, and there are some little Easter eggs hidden throughout Warmind and other expansions that kind of are showing us what is coming. Now, first of all, I think it's important to kind of point out some of the things that Destiny has been really focusing on doing here in D2, and they seem to really be wanting to wrap up loose ends in the story, which they are not wanting to pursue or engage items in the story that they are wanting to delve into a little bit further. So for example, the Exo Stranger, we find out that this has actually been Anna Bray's sister this whole time. It's Elsie Bray. We're not sure how she's been time traveling. We don't know what she's been up to, but either way, we do know that's one of those strings, just a mysterious part of this puzzle that no one had been able to figure out, which they went ahead and gave us the answer to. Also, we have Saint 14, one of the most iconic characters in D1, who for some reason is just dead inside of the Infinite Forest, which, let me go ahead and say, I didn't really like that. Yeah, it was cool, like he'd killed a million Vex, but it's kind of stupid. I mean, come on, you don't just get to take like one of the greatest action heroes from the Destiny lore and just say, oh yeah, by the way, we're just gonna say he's dead and you can find his body here, like for no reason at all. Now, of course, we have Osiris with the Curse of Osiris DLC, another major character from Destiny's lore that was brought back in D2, and that was explored a little further. So that's clearly one of the strings of this mystery which they want to get into further, so they're not just like ending that story. Now, we also have the origins of Rasputin, which of course we all know we got to explore in Warmind. Of course, a lot of people are angry that kind of went against the lore, because Rasputin was definitely not supposedly was not housed on Earth, and Elsie Bray, or Anna Bray I should say, was supposedly dead in D1. In fact, it was positive that she was dead, but Zavala, of course, in D2 acts like, oh hey, I've known you were alive the whole time, and I just was allowing everyone to think you were dead. Like, it really just doesn't make a lot of sense what they're doing there. So I'm hoping they're not going to step on any more lore, and there are ways they could fix these plot holes that they're creating in their own lore. So hopefully they do have, a workaround for some of this. But regardless, these are the things that Destiny seems to be wanting. They've been wanting to tie up some of these ends. So we also have some iconic characters, of course, from Thorn, The Last Word, just characters that haven't fully been explored. Of course, we know Dredgen Yor is dead. He was the wielder of Thorn. He was killed by The Last Word, but he also had a following that thought they could use the darkness or the deep, whatever you want to call that, to explore further possibilities to gaining power, if you will. So they thought that maybe they could use the light and the darkness together to become even more powerful, but of course they knew the risk was they would end up like Dredgen Yor, who was slaughtering innocent people and eventually had to be put down, and they knew that should be their fate also if they crossed that that boundary, I guess, if you will, of morality. So what are the Easter eggs that we can find inside of Warmind that point us towards the Reef? Well, in order to get here, first we have to go back to D1. Whenever we see in the Reef, for the first time, we see Prince Aldren. And Prince Aldren is kind of like this emo, douchey, punk kid. He doesn't listen to his parents. They tell him to go clean his room, and he just like throws, some dirty underwear at him. That's kind of like what this guy seems like to me. He's like kind of an a-hole. But I guess he's also a master of crows. He's kind of like a spy master. He has these little kind of silver birds, I guess, made out of metal that fly around and they gather intel for him. Anyways, he's known as the Master of Crows. Well, in the beginning, we ask the reef for a favor, and the queen basically obliges us. She sends us to the Black Garden. But first, to get there, we have to get the Eye of a Gate Lord. We get that eye, we bring it back, and then they tell us the coordinates to the Black Garden. But after getting these coordinates to the Black Garden, the queen lets us know, like, we owe the reef a favor. So should the reef ever call upon us, we will be there to answer. Now, some other interactions we get to see in this initial scene is that the people on the reef, or the Awoken, have some kind of alliance going on with the Fallen. This is the first time we've seen this within the Destiny universe. Actually, really the only time we've seen it in the Destiny universe, where the Fallen, or one of these enemy species of humanity, has able to be allied, I guess, with the humans. So of course we had Valkyris, we had the Prison of Elders and all this stuff. And the Prison of Elders is interesting too, but that's for a different time. So basically, we see that we owe the reef a favor. Now, some people may think that we already have repaid that favor when we went and captured Skolos in the House of Wolves expansion, which is quite possible. But this really has nothing to do so much with the favor, but it's just kind of an interesting point that we kind of are indebted to the reef because they actually helped us get to the heart of the Black Garden and destroy that, because that was supposed to be such a big event that it was going to wipe out all of humanity. So, if you fast forward a little bit to the Taken King, we can see that the Queen of the Reef is heading on a warpath towards the Dreadnought. And this whole clip is narrated by the Queen, but directed to Eris Morn. It's like she's having a conversation with Eris, almost like she's recording something, or maybe telepathically sending this message to Eris. We're not quite sure exactly how that's happening. But you can see in the clip that Prince Aldren clearly knows. He can sense his sister. They have this weird, connection, if you will, where he can meditate and he can actually go to a place and he can sense her light. They can find each other, so on and so forth. But what's interesting is it seems as though she already knew what was going to happen in this battle. She knew that she just had to use, you see these little chicks start meditating and they get these lighty glow balls and they throw them at the Dreadnought, right? And then the Dreadnought just doesn't do anything, because maybe they didn't know that that was Oryx's throne world, I don't know, but it seems like they already knew. In fact, she says in this clip that Eris, from the day Eris climbed out of that pit, meaning when she was captured or lost in the Hive world, when she finally crawled out of that pit, that they both have known that this day was coming and the eventuality that it would lead to. Also, furthermore, if we go look to the Grimoire, we can see that Prince Aldren did not actually die in this clip, even though he looks like he's screaming, maybe his ship caught on fire. I don't know, maybe he's mad, maybe the joystick wasn't working, maybe he lost, a game of Candy Crush, I don't know, but he seems really angry. Then he just stops, the clip's over, and it looks like maybe he just got wiped out with the rest of the Awoken. But if we go to the Grimoire, this Grimoire is called The Aftermath, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's kind of long, but this is one part that we do want to, I thought was important. The Techans should have known what the Dreadnought could do, must have known. Did they not feel what he felt, hear what he heard, and that damn catch? It wasn't protected. They had to know that, all to deploy the Harbingers. They barely got a foothold before the weapon was fired. He thought of Petra and how overwhelmed she must be, forced to hold her post and watch her people perish. He tried to calm himself again, forcing long breaths. He realized where he was. Mars, at the Basta. The Kandor Isles. He hadn't been here in so long, not since he found the Black Garden. So these are a few really interesting things. That goes on a little further and talks about how he finds his crow drones and orders them to repair his ship. Now, this is not the Hellas Basin where we find the Warmind expansion. And in the Hellas Basin, we actually find Prince Aldren's crashed ship. And this would have to be just the most ridiculous and retarded oversight on the part of Bungie. Now, they have done a lot of weird things with the lore, bringing back dead people, but this seems so deliberately stupid that something they can't really explain away. Why have a ship crash there for no reason, just to have a scannable? It makes no sense. Why? I mean, this isn't even I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense. So clearly Prince Aldren got his ship fixed and then he went back there. And why would he go back there? Well, I assume since he went to Mars in order to find the Black Garden in the beginning, maybe he knew that Rasputin was there all along. Maybe he needed Rasputin's help to find the Black Garden. I'm not quite sure exactly about why he was on Mars looking for the Black Garden to begin with. Either way, what's interesting is later on in the grimoire we find that he allows himself to be captured by a fallen just so he can get to the head of the house, of this fallen house. And essentially, he pretends to be weak, allows them to capture him, and then he takes over this house. Now, this kind of gives us an idea that he's trying to rebuild the reef, trying to rebuild this army that was lost, rebuild the alliances between the fallen and the awoken for whatever purpose. He also lets them know in that same grimoire card, the Aftermath, that they are going to find something that is lost. Now this could allude to his sister, it could allude, to the entire, population. They basically try to rebuild their entire society. It could mean a whole lot of things. I'm really not sure what that one is about. But what we do know is they are pushing us in a direction in D2. They are showing us, hey, the prince is still alive. And I think if they were just going to be moving his ship there for no reason, then it's clearly just to show the players like, hey, Prince Aldren is still alive, so start getting, it's almost like when you order an appetizer at a restaurant. It starts getting your taste buds working, starts making you hungry for more. That's the whole point of an appetizer. It makes you want to eat more food, right? So that's what this is, kind of like a little appetizer. And we also saw the possible interactions that will be happening on the reef in the heroic adventure, or it doesn't have to be heroic, just the adventure, Enemy of My Enemy, and this is on Titan. In this, you get to choose at the end whether or not you're going to kill a hive or a fallen or both. If you kill the hive, this fallen captain basically says, yo, thanks Brohim, I appreciate that dude, and you have his respect. And this is by far one of the cooler interactions that we've had in Destiny with any kind of enemy type, because usually they just jump out from behind a wall, they shoot a couple times, maybe they throw a nade at you or something, and you shoot them in the face. That's like all. But there's no way of gaining loyalty, there's no kind of interesting character development behind any of them, and this was interesting to see a fallen captain that seems to actually have a soul, if you will. He understands you did him a favor, you didn't kill him. And if you guys want to see that for yourself, you can go play the Enemy of My Enemy, get to the very end when you have to choose who you're going to kill the hive, and you will see it's kind of a cool little interaction that happens there. And he just basically says thank you, and he makes his way. But beyond that, I think there's definitely some foreshadowing in that mission, Enemy of My Enemy, and that foreshadowing is this war possibly between the hive and the fallen for whatever reason. And we do see the reef and dreadnought almost get touched simultaneously, a little bit after is the dreadnought. So this gives us one of two possibilities. The dreadnought will come into the game after the reef, so we're talking about like a Rise of Iron type expansion, or they're not really building a whole lot of content and they can just reuse some of that from D1. But it's very possible that it will also be in this next September update when they bring us the reef. It'll be something where the dreadnought is interacting with the reef somehow, possibly sending hive from the dreadnought, because they're both, sitting there in the rings of Saturn, right? So it's not like they're that far away from each other. Anyways, but it is going to be in the reef, so let's not act like that part is speculation. The part that's more speculation about this is whether or not the dreadnought will be in this reef expansion immediately or not. And I think having the hive with the fallen, because I think for most people the fallen are the least favorite enemy type in Destiny. They're kind of like space pirates. I think the hive are the favorite, so you really want to have what the people want in this, and it seems like the hive are going to be involved in some way. You have the fact that this is the dreadnought itself is Oryx's throne world, and in this throne world you can resurrect so long as you aren't killed in the throne world, which is why Oryx is actually dead. But we do have Nokris, who was a necromancer, meaning he brought back the dead. He worked in this weird mystical side of death, and so he could bring back himself and Zol, and maybe he has used Oryx's throne world in order to do that. We don't know. There could be a lot of possibilities. Hopefully that wasn't the last we saw of Nokris and Zol. If it was, my god, that would just be terrible. But either way, we do know it's going to be on the reef, and we do know that Prince Aldren is going to be in this expansion, and the Fallen will be involved. There's also grimoire that talked about containment procedures, because basically everything in the prison of elders is starting to escape, and they're talking about reintegration. Is this a good possibility? Is this something they should look into? So we also could just be looking at the reef, where we're going back and we're trying to capture all these people from the prison of elders who are kind of, taking over the reef. I'm not 100% exactly what the content inside the reef is going to be, but I do know that that is where we are headed. So I think this gives us a lot of really awesome possibilities for what could happen. I think the reef was always supposed to be a playable area, even in day one, but instead it was just kind of a dorky social space that kind of served no purpose. It was sort of like the farm, a little more useful than the farm, because there was actually particular vendors there, and the farm, I don't even know, dude. What is the purpose of the farm in D1? Like, that place, gee, that was just not really well thought out. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to be making a weekly lore video, maybe more than that, just depending on kind of what you guys are into. I don't know if y'all like the lore, but I really love the lore in Destiny. There's so much to it, and there's so many really interesting stories and some cool ways to tell it. But let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think is going to be the catalyst that gets this expansion going? We know it's the reef, but what is it going to be happening? What is the enemy that we are facing? What is this grand threat to humanity that arises because this expansion, according to the devs, is bigger than the Taken King? And that's good, because it needs to be. Because a lot of the future of Destiny, I feel like, is riding on this expansion. So they really, they've got to hit it out of the park. So guys, that is all for me today. I hope you all enjoyed. Peace.